Welcome to Electrify, the video show and podcast for electricians only, with your hosts Paul Abernathy and Jay the Basement King Grundberg. Sit back and enjoy the show. What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Electrify. My name is Paul Abernathy, your co-host, and with me, as always, my co-host from all the way out in Colorado, the Basement King himself, Mr. Jay Grundberg. Jay, welcome to the show as always. Welcome. How are things in Colorado?
You know, things are good, man. Things are really good. Just working hard and things are picking up. Weather's still a little chilly, but for the most part, everything's going really good.
It is definitely cold in here in Texas today. I tell you what, getting up in the morning, go out in there, and then the wind is blowing. It is quite chilly. So what am I doing here? I'm moving stuff around real quick, Jay.
I just was doing a live the other day on Instagram where I was doing a live going into work and you were taking a look at it and a couple other people as well, and you could just see how cold it was just through, you know, the camera view of where I was driving. I was going I-25 northbound, if anybody knows that part, from Denver to Broomfield. So I was going north past the Bronco Stadium, past the Denver Aquarium, past all these places, and it was, I don't know, what time was it, about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was just, you know, overcast. That's all we've had the last few days, is just some overcast. So it's chilly. Kind of rained last night and the rain froze, so it was really slick this morning. I went and did a job walk, and some of the basements I go to, like the one in Broomfield, I had to walk down the side of the house, kind of more like the pathway on the side of the house, you know, because I don't enter into these people's homes. I usually just either hit the window well and go down inside the basement, or like this particular home, it was a walkout basement, meaning the sliding glass door from the basement walked outside. So I had to go from the top level down, and they had the rocks that, you know, are about yay size, about egg size, all the way down, and they're slicker than snot. I probably fell on my butt about 5 times. I eventually just slid down. That's just stayed on my butt and just slid the whole way down.
Probably the safest way. Probably the safest bet to do it in that case.
It's like how the kids slide on the stairs. You know how they go on the top stairs and they slide on their butts all the way down to the bottom. That's how I was with the ice this morning. And then when I left to leave, about an hour and a half later, going back up to my vehicle, I slipped a couple times too. So it's been a slippery type of day, man.
Yeah, it's I tell you what, it's been cold enough here this we put my son's car in the garage. Left my truck out there, but it just recently had $1,200 worth of pump work done to it. So it had antifreeze and everything in it, you know. And again, it's cold for us, right? So it gets down into the upper 20s or whatever, but then day 2 later, it's gone. We're back up in the 50s, 60s, and whatnot. So we can endure it for a day. Got my booster shot today. So again, if the government's going to do anything to me, there was their 3rd one today that they jabbed me with. So, and I ain't getting no more. That's it. I don't care how many variants come out. That's it. I made the commitment. I'd get the 2. Then that wasn't enough. Then I got the booster. Now I hear there's going to be a 4th booster or a 2nd booster. We've made a decision. Aaron, don't. Appreciate it. We made it a point to not. We're not going to get another jab after that. That's it. That's done.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Aaron. Much appreciated.
A fan character wearing sunglasses with fireworks appearing on the lenses.
I guess you see that in the. I guess it's a little thing you see if you're on the YouTube side.
Oh, gotcha. Sounds like the 4th of July in someone's face.
Yeah. I think it's a little animation they get.
That's right. Well, thank you, bro, Hemi, man. Appreciate it. Really, really do appreciate you guys. Chris Lightsey, he's my buddy. He fell today too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it's split.
Yeah, it's slick out there. I can tell you what. And well, we've got a good show tonight. We're going to look at so so I don't want it to come across tonight as I'm a disgruntled code panel member. Most people know that I serve on code panel 5 and code panel 17, and we're not without issues, obviously, on every code panel, and things like that. But tonight's topic is two areas where I think that we're going to use this as an example of what happens in the process for people that want to know, kind of open the curtain. And it's two pieces. And again, I really haven't analyzed a lot of the other ones. We will as I start getting closer, because we still have one more stage left, which is a NITMAM, a notice of intent to make a motion. So Jay, that's another step in the approval process. And so there is, for example, now of course this could be changed, but as of right now, there is two things that I want to address. In this 2023 cycle, just two that I'll address right now. And so I want to make sure that we address those tonight, and then I will talk about something good about that happened in the code panels. And then we have a special announcement at the end that we need to make. And again, I will ask thank you, Aaron, but I will ask that you see up the screen. Please, no more donations tonight, and you'll know why at the end. So hang around for that. So let's jump right in. Let's jump right into tonight's topic. Jay, is NFPA code-making panels, and what we think kind of was a little. Martin, appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy the podcasts, things like that. Again, much appreciated. Like when you tell people don't, they do. It can't be. Yeah, obviously, can't be an electrician, bro. I'm just saying.
No, we don't listen. You know what I mean? That's what us Coloradans do. We don't listen, especially what do you think?
Yeah,
you think run the place or what? We don't listen, guys, man.
Iron workers. All right. All right, so let's go on and shift over to what we've got on screen. Okay. All right, so the first thing, let me tell you, this will be a fairly easy one, but I do have to get on and chime in anytime, Jay, because you're in the field. You have to put these things in, and you know what you've been told for years, why we do it, and all this kind of stuff. So, So this is this first one. And again, as you start seeing, as I go on through the year, you're going to notice other podcasts from me or other things from me that are going to be directed with the 2023, because we're now in that cycle. We're at the end. So this is where Paul starts to come out with his podcasts and little videos that tick people off, that tick my peers off. And everybody that knows me knows I really don't give a damn what somebody thinks of me. I really don't. And people think that in this industry with codes that we're all out to make friends. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't give a damn about anybody else on these code panels. I do have friends on the panels, but when there are friends. But as far as the code, I really don't. I'm there to do a job. I'm there to get the codes and do my job. I'm not there to be where you go and you want to socialize. A lot of people love that. I am not that kind of guy. I don't care to fly 1,500 miles to a place and spend 3 or 4 days or a week there to meet people. I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm there to get my work done, right? So I'm there to get I'm there to get the job at hand done. So I'm not a person that does real well. Oh, you're okay, Aaron. I appreciate it. So with that said, I'm sure I'll offend some people with this. And at the end of the day, I don't care. Because what I don't like, and everybody knows me when it comes to codes and getting things in the code, I am a person that does not believe in pure hypocrisy. I don't believe when people sell people a bill of goods, a bill of stuff, and tell them for years about something, then turn around and jump ship on it. And I'm just that way. Okay. All right. So, yeah, please, just as right, you'll know why later, but just right now, don't, no more donations, please. Okay. So you know me a while, Jay. I'm an equal opportunity offender, right?
Yep.
I don't really care. Like I said, I'm probably sure that I've offended my mom and dad from time to time. I really don't care. And I'm not emotional when it comes to that. I probably care more about my students because of the commitment I put to them than I do probably anybody else. I'll be honest with you. Now, like I said, I've got friends on committees, right? But that's the different type of friendship. Okay.
Yeah.
That's working with you, whatever, like that thing, but it's not like I really care to go break bread with you or anything. All right. So let's look at the first one that I think that really missed the mark here. And I hate being sold a bad bill of goods. And I'm going to call out IAEI on this one because for years they were very pushy. Okay. Very pushy to get more receptacles at islands, okay, in peninsular locations. We heard for years that, oh, one's not enough. Oh, because of the size of the island or peninsula, one's not enough. So let's do some calculations and make us get two. We need to have two. Oh, and I remember going to thing after thing where they would sit there and the inspectors and the IEI group, which is, be honest with you, IEI is in shambles right now. Be honest with you. That's why I do not support it anymore. Doesn't mean it's a bad organization. I just don't support it. The problem is that you fight for year after year after year, cycle after cycle, trying to get more receptacles in a location to reduce the use of things like extension cords, those little brown cords, or you have to hear this report after report of people pulling things off of a counter and because they ran extension cords and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so for the 2023, as of right now, what we have is 210.52C2, and as it reads, as you see on the screen, it's going to be receptacle outlets, if installed, okay, to serve an island or peninsular countertop or work surface, okay, shall be installed in accordance with 210.52C, and I can't see it, C3, if a receptacle outlet is not provided to serve an island or peninsula countertop or work surface, provision shall be provided at the island or peninsula for future additions or future, I'm sorry guys, I'm reading the same thing you are, so it's still hard for me to see it. Future addition of a receptacle outlet to serve the island or peninsula countertop or work surface. Okay. First thing I'll tell you is they obviously didn't proofread this really well because we spend a lot of time calling this peninsular, and there's a difference between peninsular and a peninsula, but in the language they call it island and peninsula. Okay. There is a difference. So they obviously didn't proof it real well, but I'm not here to do that because I'm guilty of those things as well. Here's my rub with this one. You spent all this time convincing me and half the people out there that we need more receptacles at islands and more receptacles at peninsulas, at the peninsula. And I even wrote an article for the IEI magazine called The Peninsular Project years ago. And now you're telling me they don't have to put them there at all. But you've got to run something there and put it in a junction box so that if somebody down the road wants to add one, right?
Right. Maybe down low in like one of the cabinets or something.
No, you're not even gonna. You're just gonna put it in a junction box and cap it off and leave it in the cabinet. Right. So this smells of lobbyists. This smells of the Home Builders Association. This smells of builder groups who always complain and say, "Well, there's nowhere to put one in here. I don't want to put one in. It'll mess up my pretty cabinets."
Right. We can't put one on the end because we have a trash compactor going inside, you know, and then if you can't do that, then you have to do the pop-ups, right? I mean,
and they don't like the pop-ups. They don't want them in their counter.
They don't want those pop-ups, man. They don't want those problems. So that's where I kind of see probably where they were pushing it at, is because this year with the 2020 is, you have to have that one within 2 feet of the end, which we try to put them on the end, and then it's a square footage calculation, right? So maybe you have the one on the countertop that's kind of serving double duty. It's serving the countertop and it's in the footprint of the peninsula. Where, it's serving that one. Okay, then I got one on the end. But if it's more than, what is it, 9 plus 18, 27 square foot, then I have to add a third one. Right. Well, where does that third one have to be added? And that's where I think the pop-ups came. So, but now you're telling.
Well, I could have put them. I could put them anywhere on that, that peninsula. So I could have gained them at the end, as long as that first one within the first 2 feet. But here's the rub, Jay.
Yeah.
We have been told cycle after cycle after cycle that we need these receptacles. The manufacturers come to the table crying that it's unsafe. It's unsafe. We need GFCIs everywhere. We need them all over the world, right? Because we're trying to save people from themselves, and we come up with a way to find enough receptacles to serve these areas, and now out of the blue, they don't need them anymore. Just they don't need them. So it went from a big issue where, if you go back and you look at previous cycles, public inputs, it was a passionate pleas by inspectors, IAI, all these others, passionate pleas to have these receptacle outlets, right? And then it was a passionate plea by Code Panel 2 to come up with a way to do the measurement, right? To all of a sudden to now, don't put them in, but if you do, you got to follow the rules. But if you don't, you got to put a provision there so somebody that comes along later. Do you really think that somebody, that comes along later is going to hire Jack Handyman? He's going to care about the code? Do you think he's going to care about following the rules for placement, location placement requirement? You think he's going to care? A lot of times you have one shot. All right. Now, we can't govern what people do later, right? We can't govern what happens when the inspector leaves, right? Because, again, how many times that somebody had an in-use cover on their outside receptacles, and the moment that the inspector left, those buggers came off? I mean, I'm just saying, right?
Sure.
So, look, I don't understand. I think this is a stupid move. I think that it wasn't broken. I think that as far as measurement goes, they should have gone back to a connecting edge and kept the square footage concept, do a connecting edge. And it wasn't it wasn't broke, but they didn't try to fix it. They threw this one out. And to me, it was a major mistake, major bone. All it's done now is going to have a 2026 and have all these people start submitting again, and they're going to try to get it back in probably, and they're going to probably, inspector groups will try, and then they'll try to, they can go back and look at the data from the other time when it was trying to expand it, and now they'll submit it this time, for the next cycle and try to get it back in. Stupid. So this is an example where if somebody wanted to do a NITMAM, this would be where I would do it. Or something, this is to me, this is, again, let me remind folks out there listening, if it offends you and you had something to do with this, I don't care. Okay. If you say you don't want to be friends with Paul because he's too harsh with it, okay. Don't need your friendship. This is stupid. Okay. So, any rate, it's my opinion, whether you like it or not. I'm an opinionated kind of guy. I'm going to give you my opinion. I also recommend, if you don't like my opinions, then don't listen to my content. I will say that now, rather than piss people off. If you don't like what I say, every now and then I get that thumbs down, right? I'm sitting there thinking, if you're the one idiot, right? One idiot that wants to watch my content so you can thumb something down, what the hell are you doing? You're an idiot. I'm just saying. So I'm not alienate 98%, but I mean, I'm just saying, okay? You will see all the changes. Facebook user who doesn't show their name, you will see all of those changes when it's published, Okay. I'm just talking about what is out right now, and the voting's already been done. And so it will be released in a couple of weeks, I guess, for everybody to see it. I'm not sure if you can see it. I'm guessing you can see TerraView. So it's in TerraView if you've got an NFPA account. But it's right here. I'm not making it up. It's right there on the screen. Okay. But don't worry, because the harshness gets worse. I'm just starting. Okay. Tonight. Again, I remind you, please, no donations. All right. Jay, any additional thoughts on this as an electrician? I mean, I'm sure you've heard people say, homeowners say, I don't want it in the island. I don't want it in Peninsula. And we would always tell people, it's not about what you want. It's about what's required. But they got their way, right?
Yeah. So we have a certain code that we have to follow. That's kind of my way into it, right? When I'm talking to a customer and the customer says, hey, you know, I don't want these. Why do I have to have them? And then I explain to them the code and just say, hey, it's a code thing. If you have issues with it, talk to the inspector when he comes and try to persuade him to change it for you. You know, maybe he'll make you an exception. But I have to install it per this code, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I have to do to make sure I hit that standard. The hard thing about this, right, is like kind of like what you said. There was a square footage requirement in the 2020, which was fine. It's kind of, you know, after you explained it, you know, it's pretty simple to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have inspectors that are learning it that way. You have contractors that are installing it that way. You have you know, all these things that kind of makes sense now, and then you just go straight to this. So now, you know, it's hard enough to go from 2017 on just having just that one kind of at that countertop location kind of serving that purpose to now doing the square footage and maybe receptacle within within 2 feet of the end of the peninsula to now this. So it's like every code cycle now you're kind of coming up with something else that we have to adapt to. And what's hard about that is as a contractor, I may interpretate this a different way that the inspectors are interpreting it, or one jurisdiction's interpreting, opposed to just having that consistency, kind of like what you were saying. Let it be consistent for a little bit. Let it flow for a cycle or two. You know,
Well,
like give it some type of.
Well, we make changes. That's what the code's about. Every 3 years, there's something we can change. There's something we can tweak. There's evidence. Look. The concept of code. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit this, and again, people aren't going to like me saying this because I've been a staunch supporter of the NFPA process. Okay, and I've always fought it and I've supported it. But I'm going to tell you that if you don't think that individuals that sit on a code panel don't have the ability to be swayed. There's a lot of games played on these things where you've got some of these folks on committees who will pick up the phone and call everybody else to try to see how they're going to vote, or how are you voting, or this is why I'm against it, because they're trying to lobby for position. I'm against that 100% because I believe you should vote how you think the rules should be, and that's why we're there. Right. That's why we're on a committee. And I'm just not into the games. Let's just say I'm not easily swayed. Now, I will tell you, I serve on a committee because I represent associations, and we have to vote the way of the associations. And so I'll talk a little bit about that in the next one, because I'm not going to say it's a good old boy thing, or even in some of these cases, a good old girl thing. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of times people they vote a certain way because they're voting a certain line, and you kind of that old saying, you throw the baby out with the bathwater type of thing. I still say hands down, it's the best process. ICC process sucks. I've been involved in that. It sucks. sucks. If y'all ever familiar with that kind of process where you get everybody in a big room and you vote and it could go halfway into the night and the votes all depend on who all's in the room. And if you have more support in the room, you can get something passed. That process sucks. NFPA process is a little better, except for the fact that you got people that play games. They email each other and call each other and try to get enough votes to pass this or that, rather than the person that should be making a decision on their own. They get swayed by somebody else. To me, that's gutless. Okay, gutless approach to getting code changes. If you don't know something about it, then you abstain. But you don't just go with something because somebody calls you up and sways you. I'm against it. That is not the way it's to be done. Okay. If you're not well-rounded enough to understand the concepts or the topics that are being discussed, then you either abstain or you get off the code panel. We don't need you on there, right? You're just taking up space. It's kind of like Congress and Congress, the Senate and the House. Who the hell can make a career out of representing the people and make that a career? Do something else. So anyway, enough of that. All right. So you're right. So, I mean, in this case, we built it up. I know I told you I got my booster shot today, right? So maybe this is my booster. Maybe this is a side effect of the Moderna booster. I don't know. Okay.
And I ain't never been jabbed.
You ain't had the jab yet? There you go. Well, you'll be fine. Yeah, but you're young. I'm old. What the hell? If it ends up giving me a third testicle, who cares? All right. So we're going to now move on to the second one that I want to talk about tonight. And there's many more that I'm going to talk about. And again, Adam, thank you for getting the hoodies. I will say, regardless of an announcement, Electrify in the name we're still going to have the Electrify channel. So I'm not going to, that's later. Okay. So, let's move on to the next one. Okay. All right. So the next one, I got to go pull this one up, Jay. So,
yeah. What's up, Gain and NEC? Shout out to the Basement King. What's up, man?
Yep. So let me go to the next one that I have. And, okay. So the next one happens to be in a code panel. I'm sorry. I was over talking to Jay. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Next one that I have to look at is in a code panel that I participate in. Okay. So I'm going to have to explain the backstory here. So 250.122, we had quite a few, subtle changes in here. There was a change that was trying to be made to 250.122b. Now, in the first first draft, we made all these changes. We made actually 250.122 better to understand. One of the big changes that we made was in 250.122a. Now, what you see on the screen is a revert back to what it was in the 2020. So this is my example of throwing the baby out of the bathwater in a lobbying example, and where people were willing to throw out really good work for one little mountain or hill they wanted to stake their flag in. Okay. So when we went through the first process, we added language in 250.122a to make it clear that when it says in there that the equipment grounding conductor shall not be required to be larger than the circuit conductor supplying the equipment, there was a NFPA interpretation that came out to me that I shared with the committee that made the statement that the equipment grounding conductor never needs to be larger than the circuit conductors that are inside the raceway. And that is not true. Because if you base the equipment grounding conductor on the size of the overcurrent device, right? And since the code doesn't allow you to parallel equipment grounds, they have to be full size in each raceway. So it's based on the size of whatever the overcurrent device. That's the whole point of the table, right? So ultimately, whatever the size of the overcurrent device, it would have resulted in an equipment grounding conductor that could be larger than the conductors in the raceway. However, the intent here was these circuit conductors, if it's a parallel set, it's the sum of all of the ungrounded conductors, just one phase of it, in all of the parallel sets. And they act as one circuit. Even though they're in parallel, they act as one circuit. So if I had 500 kc mil, okay, in each raceway, and I had 8 raceways, right? So that's 500,000 times 8, right? That's 4 million circular mils, okay? If you add up all of the parallel sets, you just use one phase. That now is basically the circuit conductor. Even though it's parallel, it acts together. That's why we have to follow all these paralleling rules. It acts as one conductor. So if that's the case, our equipment ground will never have to be larger than that sum of all the ungrounded conductors. And everybody agreed, and that's true. And NFPA gave an interpretation of that was incorrect. It's informal, but it was incorrect. I submitted it, but I did it in another way, which wasn't with 250.122a. So folks that say, well, Paul, you're just upset because your code change didn't make it. I didn't do that change for 250.122a. Mine was down in 250.122f, but it was an intent to bring out the fact that there was bad language in 250.122a. And the panel agreed, and they made the change. And the change was exactly as that. It says that it's the sum of all the ungrounded conductors, just one leg now, not all legs. We all should know that by now. I don't want to get into a lesson tonight. I'm not in the mood for it. But if you have an A, B, and C in each raceway, it's the A's in each raceway. The sum of that is the conductor to that piece of equipment, right? Well, that means that your equipment grounding conductor never has to be larger than that cumulative sum, but it most certainly could be larger than the conductors that are in the raceway. And so we made it clear. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that went through on the first revision. Everything went, I think it was like 16-0. Everybody was like, dude, everything in 250.122a, b, c, d, it was done. It was beautiful. So then we come back for the second revision. And lo and behold, the raceway manufacturers want to put in an informational note under B for increase in size to remind people that there are other ways to do this using a software program that was very much based on their products, right? It had nothing to do with the wire as an equipment ground, but it had to do with their raceway, saying you don't have to do obviously reminding you that there's other ways to do the calculation. Then you can submit that and not have to increase the size of the equipment ground if you increase the size of the ungrounded conductors for whatever reason. So they put that in there. Well, then they fought really hard to be one specific program, and I am not going to do even the justice of mentioning the program because it has nothing to do with wire type equipment grounds. It has everything to do with raceways, which you don't have to increase in size anyway. So the concept was this program could be used as an alternative to increasing the size of the equipment grounding conductor. But the program that we're promoting really has nothing to do with the wire type. It had everything to do with the raceway. And it was funded by raceway people. So anyway, once that came about out of nowhere, now we all can't agree. So the wire manufacturers are ticked off because it's the raceway people putting it in. And the raceway people want it in there because they want to promote their as that is the method you use to do, to do calculations. Anyway, and in this course, everybody starts calling everybody. Everybody say, how you going to vote? How you going to vote? How you going to vote? So I actually represent the Aluminum Association. So my response to the Aluminum Association was, we should not support the statement of a specific software, right? We should not support the statement of a specific software. All right, now we could have said that there's other ways to come up with it. that you could size the equipment ground. If you increase the size of the ungrounded conductors, you can use software to determine that it's okay, that you don't have to increase the size of the equipment ground. We were okay with that, right? Not a problem with that. But what happens is now you get where it has to go, and it fails, so it has to end up going to a ballot because it's not majority and it's not 2/3 and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not going to get into all the. So now I'm told that okay, so you have all these other things that are in there that we voted 16-0. And so there's some little changes in there, but none of them significant. So because this fails, all of the good things that were done to 251.22 for clarity as an educator, things that were done to make it flow better, all because of that one little thing throws out the entire work that was done in 250.122. The whole thing thrown out. And it reverts back. So I'm going to show you. So right here, we see this ballot, okay, based on a public comment. And again, it was based on 250.122B, but everything that was done in A all the way down gets thrown out. It reverts all the way back to the 2020 edition. So if I do view here, and I don't know how much, I don't want to readjust the screen, so I'm going to see what it looks like. Okay, well, I am going to adjust the screen because you can't see it. Hold on for a second. Hold on, I'm trying to lock this thing down. All right, so here, let me move this way real quick. Bear with me, folks.
No, you're doing good. While you're doing that, give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll talk while Jay's gone. So here's what you see, the revisions. So what you can see here is that now remember now, this was only 250.122B. We had substantive work that was done in other parts of 250.122 to make it clearer. I'm just trying to show you what happens here. This is one little piece, okay? One little piece in 250.122B. Okay, you with me? That they come back, the raceway manufacturers come back with here for the second revision. And this is what it is. So let me show you what it is. So they want to add this, right? It's informational note, which means nothing. Nothing. Informational notes are not enforceable. Okay, so it says, see Jimmy. All right, I said the name of it. Okay, sue me. See Jimmy analysis software for an industry practice method for determining acceptable equipment ground and conductor sizing. Okay, because you have this exception that said equipment ground and conductors shall be permitted to be sized under engineering supervision or by qualified person using industry practices to meet the performance objectives of 250.4A5 and effective ground fault current path. And have to demonstrate, hold on, you're in the way here. I have to demonstrate the method used and equipment ground and conductor size shall be made available to the authority having jurisdiction upon request. Okay, so this rule is about increasing the size of the equipment ground and conductors if you increase the size of the ungrounded conductors other than for adjustment and correction purposes. So if you're doing it for voltage drop or whatnot, then you have to do a calculation. Well, this is an exception saying you don't have to do the calculation, right? If you get an engineer, if an engineer will be willing to stamp it, or if you get a qualified person using industry practice. So then they come down here and they put this informational note for this Jimmy, okay? The software has nothing to do with the wire type equipment grounds, first and foremost. So we could have easily just voted to reject this one, right? But anyway, so that's what happens. So now if you go back and you look at the code, and I'm going to have to adjust the screen to bring it back. So that was the ballot, so you know. So now I'm going to bring it back here so we can look at the code. So now you see what it says. So now what it says it still says the exception. It said equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted to be sized by a qualified person to provide an effective ground fault current path in accordance with 250.4 A5 and A6. So look what's happened here. You went from where they would require an engineer to do it and a qualified person, and using, if they want to, in other words, what we're saying is they want to try to say that you don't need to increase the equipment ground because it can handle it the size that it is. Okay, qualified person. Okay, we'll argue who that could be. It could be you, it could be me, anybody, whatever. But they got the words they wanted the first time around in the first revision. We got the engineer or the qualified person, but they were so hell-bent on adding an informational note referring to a software, which there are many other types of softwares that you could use, but that was one of them. So only thing I was opposed to is don't put any software in it. We don't need to be promoting software. And they say, well, it's a free software. Yeah, but the whole thing was sponsored by the Raceway folks. It doesn't even need to be in here. But my point for this one was you threw the baby out with the bathwater. Now I'm going to show you this. Hopefully I can do this. Okay. We got a child abduction alert. They're not coming to get me. All right. I'm going to go here real quick, Jay. And hopefully I can do this because I want to show you. So this is what it is. This is what it's proposed to be now. Okay. So the language that's in here for 250.122A, a B, C, D, whatever, is going to be the same thing it was in the 2020, right? So now I'm going to try to get back. Bear with me here. I'm going to try to get to what it was when we all voted and show you the difference. And to show you that when people don't get along because they have certain interests, right, that it ends up screwing up a lot of good work that gets done. All because of an informational note. All because of requiring, wanting to say that it had to be an engineer who has to okay a normal sized equipment grounding conductor without increasing it. All that same language was still basically there. Okay. All right. So now let me show you what we got. So this is where we were at. Now this is where we were at when we voted, and I can even show you the vote, and it was unanimous. Okay. It was unanimous. All right. So let's see where we're at on the screen. Let me bring this up here. Okay. Look what it says now. So this is what it was, Jay, before the second revision. This is when we were all in agreement. Okay. Now watch. It says copper-clad aluminum equipment grounding conductors of the wire type shall not be smaller than shown in table 250.122. The equipment grounding conductor shall not be required to be larger than the largest circuit conductor or some, that's adding it all together, right? Some of the circular mills for parallel conductors. That shows you that the equipment grounding conductor could ultimately be larger than the conductors that are in that raceway. Okay. But it's based on the sum of those parallel conductors. Okay. So that was good work because that is legitimately what can happen. So we've lost that now. Next thing, here's the one with the increased size. Notice there's no informational note, right? Now, the exception was equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted. Now, underlining is what's changed, guys, and X in line through it's what's proposed to be removed. It says equipment grounding conductors shall be permitted to be sized under engineering supervision or by a qualified person using industry practices to meet the performance objectives of 250.4A5 or B4. Documentation of the method used and the equipment grounding conductor size shall be made available to the authority having jurisdiction upon request. Perfect. Perfect. But then they come around at the second draft and they want to put an informational note referencing a specific software. There's no need for that. The point is, though, it was an informational note, so it shouldn't matter. So to me, I was neither here nor there, to be honest with you, at the beginning. I was like, you know what? If you want to put Jimmy in there, I don't give a damn. I really don't. That is one software you can use. It's not really designed for wire. But I mean, and this is about wire here when it comes to the 250.122. There's no argument that a raceway has to be sized any different for effective ground fault current path. Hey, raceway guys, we're not arguing. But you should keep your butt out of this because this is talking about the wire type. And so the addition of that informational note. Now, again, like I said, I didn't really care about the information. My point is because people lobby and people that aren't even on this panel who are in other associations, when they get a chance to look at it, now they want to opine and give their opinion when they elected somebody like me to be their representative, right? But then they're like, no, I can't agree on that. In some associations, if only one person disagrees, you have to abstain, which is BS anyway. It should be a majority vote as well. But that's the way it is. And I mean, that is what it is. And you know, I'm okay with however their rules are. But because of abstention, we ended up losing this. And now they act like, well, I liked it better when it was I liked it better in the 2020. That's bullshit. 2020 was not clearer. 250.122 is clearer in the 2023 proposed first draft. It is now not clear anymore. Okay? Now, we can always point back to this and remind people that the only reason that it failed was because of B, right? So all the merits of A still there, and we can say that this kind of lets you know that NFPA had an improper informal interpretation. Otherwise, the code panel wouldn't have changed this. But the reason that this one fails, and it failed the bid, is because of lobbying. And if you read the comments, people say, you know, I like lots of parts. Even the person that's the chair said, I like many of the things that we did in 250.122. But we threw the baby out with the bathwater on this one. Just tossed that thing out like it was just a coddling mess. Okay? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
that's you look, as an educator, you try your best to make good code. You try your best. And when you're 16, I got to show you that. I just got to show you this, where we were at this language. I just got to show it to you. So right here. Okay. No, actually, that's not it. Hold on. Let me close this here. I think you're in the way, Jay. I got to move you. All right. Over here, first revision. Okay. Okay. So this is I don't know what y'all can see. So hold on, let me go back to whatever it is here. Sorry guys, I'm all over the place tonight on this show, but that's okay. I really don't care. All right. Let me zoom it down a little bit. You know, you got to get it all in here, so I got to change the size. So I just want to show you. So here we were, first revision, what we voted on. I get it. There's multiple paths. But as you can see here, all of this made it in there. Here was the or sum of the parallel circular mills. This really made it clear everything it had to be. Okay. Went down here, even remove references, you know, certain things, so metal raceways, gutters, whatnot, this type of thing, and references to 250.118 because we know they are, you know, good equipment granted conductors and all that kind of jazz, right? So we got down to here, right? And I want you to see something, Jay. 16 eligible votes, 1 not returned, 11 affirmed, means they didn't even give a comment. They're like, I like it. I like it. 2 of them affirmed with a comment, right? And then we had 1 that was a negative, right? Okay. So, you know, we have 1 that disagrees. And of course, you know, again, you know, you've got a representative, no disrespect, great guy. He still affirmed it. He was for it. He was for all this. But you can see they made a reference to Jemmy Project. Okay? And this is where the informational notes started. The problem with that, okay, is it comes from somebody that's representing the Steel Tubing Institute. And nothing against Joe. Great, wonderful, sweetheart of a guy, no doubt. But we all have agendas. So anyway, other than that, everybody was okay with it. Look, there's me. There's everybody else. Some people in here I highly respect, right? Are all for it. Then all of a sudden it comes back again in the second revision, and now all of a sudden what is in there? All this about the Jimmy and all this kind of stuff, and then all of a sudden it just goes to hell after that. And then it's like, all right, we just threw the baby out with the bathwater. That's it. Okay. At this point, I had no problem with the statement informational note because, again, it ain't enforceable. It's just an informational note. I don't like it. And I recommended we vote against it only because I do not, personally, I just do not like when you put different products in an informational note. And they can say it's free all you want, but they collect your name and all this kind of stuff. So you still have to put in information. It's not like you click it and you download. You got to go through some steps to get it. It is free. But they also make it sound like it's the easiest software in the world to use. And then if you can download it and use that software, does that really necessarily make you a qualified person just because you downloaded a software? There's other ways that you can calculate that out. There's other softwares that you can use to do that. Okay. So anyway, that is a change. That is something I think that we just totally dropped the ball on that one. And as an educator, and all educators out there, you can sit there and say that, no, 250.122a, but I can tell you, I have some highly respected people who disagreed with this premise that the equipment ground never has to be larger than the largest conductor in that raceway, even when they're done in parallel, right? There's a reason why, okay, folks? There's a reason why when you look at the size of the overcurrent device, there's a reason why conductors are a certain size. There's a reason why the code says, unless we do other testing, there's a reason why when we run them in parallel raceways that it has to be full size. The code tells us that, right? You can't parallel an equipment grounding conductor. In other words, we parallel ungrounded conductors because we're trying to get more current. You can't do that with an equipment ground. There's a reason. If you believe that there's a reason that you can do that, then you need to submit the data to the committee because there's nobody submitting that. A very well-respected friend of mine says, well, it probably would trip a breaker either way. There is no probablys when it comes to clearing an overcurrent protected device. And you could have a fault in any one of those raceways, and it still has to clear that overcurrent device. If I have a 6,000 amp overcurrent device for feeder, right? And it says it has to be at 800 kc mil, right? That's a full-size 800 kc mil. If I run 10, 15, whatever the number of sets, and it ends up being 500 kc mils, then people would read that 250.122a and say that it never needs to be larger than the 500. But that's basically saying that we're paralleling the equipment ground. And there's nothing in the code that says you can do that. It has to be full-size. And if you've got data to support this, then we eagerly await for you to submit it to the code panel, but nobody's been able to come up with it. Nobody's done the testing. So until you submit it, we're going to go with what's the legacy. And this is what the code has been for eons. Full-size equipment grounds in each raceway. So does that mean if I ran 10 sets of 500 kc, I don't know what the current is, but if I ran 10 sets in order to supply a 6,000 amp switchgear for a feeder, and it says that I have to have 800 kc mil in each raceway, is that going to be larger than the conductor that's in that individual raceway for the HOTS? Absolutely, it's going to be larger than that 500. Okay? But the code was clear. When you run conductors, now this just clarifies it because I certainly think we still get there here, but this was trying to clarify it because I still believe that that if you run parallel conductors, they're still considered one conductor installed in parallel. So if I have 5 sets and you connect them together at the end, you follow all the rules in paralleling, then that acts as one conductor. That's why it has to be the same length, same characteristics, same conductive material, all of that, because it acts as one. When I run a 4-aught conductor that's stranded, They're essentially, all these stranded conductors are running in parallel together as a single conductor. Essentially, that's the same thing that we do when we're doing parallel sets. Okay? So for one informational note that mentions something, you're going to be throwing out the baby with the bathwater for educators who can make things a little bit better for people to understand. And I've got an improper interpretation from NFPA to prove it, that we needed this language fixed. But you threw it out. You threw the whole thing out. And the only reason I'm upset a little bit about it is it was a freaking informational note. That's it. You basically got everything you wanted in here with the first revision. Was it really worth throwing it all out? Anyway, that's that one. Okay, Jay.
Poor baby's getting thrown out.
Oh, so let me adjust this back down because I got documents all over the place now and bleeding onto everything now, so bro. Okay, and I'm sure people on the screen can't see it, so okay. So anyway, what else? Oh, okay. So, okay, let's have some good, you want some good moves that were done? Kind of want to lift the mood for some good moves? That type of thing real quick at the end. And, sure. I know Michael was probably waiting for his code turd. Sorry, Michael, we're not going to, last minute change. We're not going to do your code turd tonight. I'm sorry. You've been probably watched all night just to see that code turd. But we're not going to do that. So what I want to do is just to give a little kudos to some work that was done good in this cycle. One of them is people might remember, I got to go back to the other one. So bear with me. Let me get back to the second revision real quick, guys. Hold on. Okay, so some of you might remember that there's this big push to get non-metallic sheath cable in the copper-clad aluminum in 14 gauge, only good for 10 amps, right? All right, well, and obviously I might work for a wire and cable manufacturer, right? But I can tell you, I got real problems with copper-clad aluminum in general. And I will be talking about that in some upcoming episodes that I'll be doing. That'll be, to be talking about. But I will tell you that copper-clad aluminum is not going to be used in non-metallic sheath cable in a 14 gauge, which was going to be only good for 10 amps. And so it would have only been good in limited applications anyway. Okay, you would had to do it on lighting because you can set the load. You know what the watts are going to be, and so or a specific appliance that you can define the load. Can't use it for receptacle circuits and all that. Anyway, they were pushing really hard for that. That got failed because it just makes sense. Because I don't care what anybody says. You can talk out of one side of your mouth and say that copper-clad aluminum is a separate metal, separate compound than aluminum. Okay, it might be an AA8000 series core, right? That's got a veneer of copper, specific thickness, okay? And you might say that it gets all the benefits of copper, but it has the light weight of aluminum, and it's cheaper, okay? The problem is there's a reason why most of us manufacturers don't make even though the code allows us, we don't make a 14, a 12, and a 10 gauge aluminum. Not that the code says we can't. And it's not because of what you read back in the late 60s and early 70s. That was 1350 aluminum. That was different than the 8000 that we have today. It's totally different. The problem is people don't seem to know how to terminate things. And even though the code has rules in 110.14d for terminating, and now we've relaxed that where you don't have to have to use a calibrated tool and things like that. You just have to torque it to a certain value from either what's on the equipment. If it's not there, you can use 486A and B in the annex or from UL. All those type of things. But people are notoriously don't follow torquing rules, right? And so in my experience, and I'm going to be showing this, when you over torque copper clad aluminum, it literally crushes it down to as thin as paper and it gets weak. At least copper has some, I should say, butt to it when you torque it. So people, they don't torque. Now, some people say, well, then you just got to follow the torquing rules. I agree, but people don't. And I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourself out there. How many of you carry a torquing screwdriver and you torque all your terminations? Don't lie. Don't lie to me. Okay? So the reality is people aren't torquing. Not twerking, Jay, torquing, right? So at the end of the day, smaller conductor. Now, the second problem I had with it is there's no color coding scheme for the jackets, even though we will put like white is 14 gauge, the yellow is 12, orange is 10. That's not a code requirement. That's not anything in the industry. In fact, Encore Wire, originally a guy named Mr. Rigo, who was the founder, he actually started doing that and everybody else caught on. You should have patented the thing. But anyway, at the end of the day, if you were going to go with copper clad aluminum on a job site, Jay, your job site, if you were going to go with copper clad aluminum, you'd have to have a 14 in aluminum to handle the things 10 amps or less. You'd have to have a 12 gauge aluminum to handle the 15 amp loads. And you'd have to have a 10 to handle the 12. You're a contractor, Jay. Are you going to go out and buy 3 different reels, 3 different sizes just to take on one damn job site? So you're going to, and then are you going to make sure that your electricians don't accidentally grab the 14 gauge copper clad aluminum and run them for a circuit for the receptacles only to find out that you can't do that at a later date and you get in trouble for that, or something happens and you become liable? We can't watch what people do, right? And there is no color coding requirement, even though they probably would follow it. So anyway, and they'll also argue things like, well, it's just as good as copper because it, skin effect. The current travels on the outside perimeter of the conductor. It's copper out there. Hey, I got news for you. Skin effect doesn't become overly relevant until the frequency goes up really high. Then it starts pushing the current out to the perimeter of the conductor. Okay? DC current uses the entire conductor down to the core. At 60 hertz AC, you're going to be using more of that aluminum in that copper clad than you are the copper part. I'm just saying, it's not like they tell you, right? So don't be using skin effect as the reason. There's not enough testing on using that in small circuit conductors. Okay, period. If you get bigger, that's fine. Smaller, there's not enough testing. There's, again, what's the resistance? It's all over the place with this copper clad aluminum. And the folks want to make you think that it's oh no, it's just as good. The data, they say they've done a lot of data, but the data's got loopholes in it. And I stayed quiet and all that. I let other people fight that fight, but I read all the data and I looked at it and I was like, if this passes, we're not ready for it. Someday maybe, but we're not ready right now. There's not enough real testing to do it. Okay, they could say they got all the testing in the world, but it's got problems in it. And what they did was they hired somebody who's really good at standards and used to work for a well-known NRTL, and they did a bunch of these tests and they set up a bunch of these rigs and did everything. It's not the same. So good news is it didn't pass in 334, so it didn't make it in here. And so again, it's still 14 through 12 copper and 12 through 2 aluminum, okay, and copper clad aluminum. So still that. Also, Jay, it also, now I can tell you, it just shows you where the code sometimes these, because we have different committees where stuff is kind of gets messed up. I'm going to show you where some stuff kind of gets wonky. So here's 310. Real quick. So here, so under conductors, right? This was also where it failed ballot because they wanted to be added here, right? To show those sizes. Okay. And it also failed. So it didn't make it here either. So you see where it still says minimum size. It says 14 copper is the minimum and 12 aluminum and copper clad aluminum, right? Still says that, right? Okay, so effectively in 2 places, it was shut down. You with me?
Yep.
Okay. But in other panels where we all don't communicate, right? And I just want to show you also in 31016, it didn't make it. Okay. And I'll just go down and show you. So 31016, which is the ampacity table. Here you see that for the copper side, here you see 15 for 14, yep. But over here you see no 14, right? So it didn't make it. It's gone from there, right? With me?
Yep.
So since it effectively didn't give us that conductor at that ampacity, so now you got to go over to overcurrent devices in the protection, right? And if you look down and look through here, guess what's still here? 14 AWG copper clad aluminum, 10 amps. So in some places it goes in, other places it didn't go in, and it's a mess, right? But we can tell you, you can't use it, and it's not listed under conductors. It's not listed under non-metallic sheath cable in this size. So my hope is they all get together in the correlating committees and everybody, whatever, tries to clean this thing up, because it'd be stupid to have this in here yet not allow it anywhere else, or not have it anywhere where you can use it in the code, that type of thing. So this is how balloting works. So this probably passed in this panel, but in the other panels it didn't. So now you've got these differences all over the code when it comes to that product. Okay. But I will tell you, it didn't make it. It didn't make it in 334 for non-metallic sheath cable, and that was the big one they were pushing for. Okay, that type of thing. All right, Jay. It's enough of that. Let's go back to our main thing. Those are 2 things for tonight. So those are at least good. Is that copper clad and 14 gauge seems to be squashed in most places. Again, it's not because I'm a copper guy. It's because I firmly, honestly, do not believe that 14 gauge copper clad aluminum for 10 amps is the right move. That's too much propensity for people to use it in the wrong application. And now we have, so I mean, is it going to eventually make it? Yeah. Okay. It's a UL listed product. It's eventually going to make it. The problem is it needs more stuff done right now. It's not ready yet for that. The other ones are just boner moves. And again, if I offended anybody out there with those that had any involvement in those process of those boner moves, you're welcome, because you screwed up, in my opinion. Not necessarily Jay's opinion, but my opinion. Okay. All right. Sorry, Jay. Go ahead.
No, I'm just telling those guys, don't be a boner.
Yep. Don't be a boner. Don't be that guy. I'll take it for the team. You can take it for the team. Again, like I said, I have never been one that cares about the clicks, that type of thing. So I really don't care. All right. So let's get to the announcement. People have been asking why no donations and that type of thing. So let's go on and get to it. So I've been doing podcasts and videos since about 2004. People familiar with the old, the Electrical Guru, and been doing them for years and years and years. Okay. And about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I started this, podcast, Electrician Live type of thing, where I could bring you in. It started out as purely code, because I'm a code guy. I live and breathe code. I do bite my tongue a lot. Obviously not tonight. It's probably bleeding all down. But when we did the show, and we started doing the show, and people really love the show. We appreciate it. In fact, the whole concept originally was this was just going to be the Howard Stern version of the podcast. It was really a podcast. It wasn't a video. But we got so good at doing the video, and it got so good at the look, and if you've seen other people's, you know what I mean. And we got better at the audio. We got better at everything. However, you've heard us talk about Jay has made major changes, and I'll let him speak to that because I kind of sprung this on him. He's very busy. I have a lot of stuff on the plate with Wednesday night exam prep, which I'm dedicated to my students. And so I will always be passionate and dedicated to teaching and students. But at the end of the day, it's just not enough time in the day to do everything. Everybody knows I'm an encore during the day, and I work hard for them. Very proud of everything we achieve with them. And then I come back and I have to run the academy. And luckily I have people that help me. But with the new approval from the ICC preferred providers and the courses that we have to come up with and the things that we're doing in the background, from my perspective, I needed to dedicate more time to that. Now I'll go live and do podcasts and do spontaneous things, but to have a commitment every Thursday night right now with so much stuff going on my plate, that it seemed like it would be a time to take a hiatus and take about 6 months off and reevaluate. Doesn't mean we're not going to be having shows. We'll do something like the residential commentary. We'll still have episodes, and you'll still have shows that are out there. But the commitment to doing it weekly is tough now with so much stuff going on. I kind of figured this out when preparing for a show like this. We would have to prepare. And so it got to where we just didn't have the time, and we're not having the time to prepare. Electrify is not going anywhere. That's our branding. Okay. That's the branding for the shows and this channel and the streams and everything. But this specific Thursday night show will no longer happen on Thursday nights. And Jay, you tell a little bit about everything that you've got going on. I mean, I can only imagine. I was that age. I had the business. You got a baby. You got a son that's working now, but he's at that age where he's working, but he still needs dad. You got the wife who's trying to juggle so many things. And you're reinventing Wired Up in 2022. As you said yourself, you're really focused on 2023 and 2024. So 2022 is a heavy workload year for you. So you want to elaborate on that? Because again, when I said this to you, you were like, it wasn't a hesitation, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, it actually wasn't a hesitation. I mean, when I first seen it, I understand change. I'm always for change. I've always been for change, and sometimes when things happen like this and things get thrown at something like this where it's like, hey, we're just going to take a 6 month pause for a little bit, then I have really nothing other than to respond with, okay, like I roll with the punches. I roll with what we're doing. And so on my side, I actually we are so just so you guys know, we're, as a business, we're taking not really a step back, but we changed our process up now to where we're not doing hourly work. We're doing more piecework per project with these guys. We're going through something where one of my crew leads is actually gave me like a 3-day notice that he's taking off. So tomorrow's going to be his last day. I got to still run that part of the business of it. My project manager's been out now for a couple months, and he's going to be out for a couple more months. So I'm stepping into that role to where, I could be doing 2 to 3 job walks a day. Normally I do about 1, maybe 2 at the most. We also have the warehouse in-house now. So I have a warehouse manager who I'm trying to teach him the way in running a warehouse, and also we're building an app right now, which again, I think we have 24 more weeks to build this app. And that's a once a week process. So like even tomorrow, we meet with the people at 12 p.m. tomorrow to map this thing out. So there is a lot going on. And that's just business side. And outside of business, like you said, we have the little kiddo growing. She needs all of our attentions. the wife, the kid, everything that happened. So when you actually said this to me at first, I was like, oh man, I enjoy the Thursday nights, and I really do. I enjoy everybody out there who I've come in contact with, and hopefully you guys have gotten something from me, and you can always reach out to me directly. I have no issue with that at all. Paul and I are still going to continue doing other things together, but to not have a dedication on Thursday night is actually kind of relief. It's kind of like the monkey off the shoulder, right? You don't have to always be dedicated to something that like you said, when life happens, you're scrambling. We're trying to put content together. I fell off the wagon a little bit on my end of the deal, so I kind of, when it came, I got it. I understood it, and I never take it personal. I always try to look at the bright side of things too. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with us here, and I'm excited to kind of take 6 months off and reevaluate it, and maybe come back even stronger and harder, and be able to be full time in it. Not that I wasn't at any point. I didn't feel like I wasn't.
No, you were in it.
Giving
You were
as
you were
my
in
best
it.
content, you know. And I kind of wish I would have hit more on the contractor end, but like Paul said, he's a code guy. He that's his thing. That's what he does. I'm not a code guy. I know the code enough to get my jobs done and go. I'm not there yet, and I don't plan on being there anytime soon. Right? I'm
Well,
still
I
a contractor
think
learning
I,
my.
I think we brought a great dynamic. I mean, I'm a code guy who's hung up the tools. You know, you're a tool guy who has some knowledge of the code, and you're learning, and we're always learning. And that has nothing to do with this. For those out there, this is a situation where literally people have said to me, "How do you get everything done?" And I've often preached that you have to know how to manage your time. And I always say that about CME-CPs. The big thing about being a certified master electrical code professional is one of the keys is time management, right? And when you start managing your time and you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, I enjoy our time that we do this. And I believe we have a good chemistry, like somebody said, a good banter, and that type of thing. And we're going to continue to do those different things. But the commitment on Thursday nights to a show each week like that, I mean, I've been doing these for many, many years. But right now, Electrical Code Academy is to the point where I can almost, and I know Michael will say something here, Schwartzy will say, I am almost at the point where I can't do it. I shudder not to say alone, but I'm at the point where it's with so many students right now and so many courses that I need to dedicate my time to what I'm known for. And I'm known for code. I'm known for teaching code.
Right.
And I need to start getting deeper into code. Okay. And that's what I do. But it doesn't I can't do that. And I think it's the same with you is I think I can't do that. And you can't do that on a time commitment every week at the same time. It needs to be at our time and things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, and I also think that we've came a long ways with this show, man. We appreciate everybody who's donated, who's been a part of it, who's allowed us to grow. We've definitely made leaps and bounds in the industry, and again, it's just a little pause. It's going to be put on hold. You're gonna figure out your end. I'll figure out my end, and at the end of the day, when we come back, we're gonna blow it up even bigger. So I'm excited, man, and I'm pretty thankful for the opportunity to be able to take a step back. So
yeah, and like I said, folks, it's Electrify is not over. We'll be doing things together. We still have the residential commentary. We'll be doing those. There's other things that we'll be doing commentary. It's just that we're not going to have to do it at a set time every week.
Exactly.
Right? We can produce these and we can upload them. And as y'all all know, I use Restream. So producing these, they can go out to every platform. But it's tougher to do a weekly thing at the same time. And again, we touted that as the only weekly live show for years now. That is true. That is true. But the reality is it takes one serious commitment to do that. And I thank you for making that commitment and coming on board when we did that. I just want people to know it has nothing to do with Jay or me. It has everything to do with the fact that it was very obvious that we both had our hands in so many things that we could not. I'll give you an example because we're honest here. When we come up with a topic on the day of the show, that means you're not fully prepared to do a show like you really want it. And if it looks like always that we're just really good at it, it's because we're usually covering a topic, and we want to be engaging topics. So if we don't have the time to put that in it is sincerely not fair to you and your time and being respectful of your time. So what I do know that people like from me is they like code. So I'll do my code, and I will do my little pieces of code, and I will do what Jay will do code, and we'll do our commentaries, and we'll look at, if you're out on the internet and you've got a video, we're looking for you. It's nothing. So I'm not downplaying it, but it just means that we're not committed to every Thursday night, right? And you saw this coming because we moved from Saturday nights because we needed the weekends for the family. Again, I always say happy wife, happy life. So happy life, one less homicide. So now we moved to Thursday nights. And we got so much stuff going on, and I'm sure all of you do too. So that's the thing, Jay. Everybody out there takes time out of their week to join us. You have no idea how appreciative we are of that. You have no idea. There's a lot of people on the internet. A lot of people do videos. I guarantee you they don't appreciate it. So while I am hateful to the people on the code panel for making their decisions, and I talk a big game when I started out acting like I was Puff the Magic Dragon. Reality is we do appreciate you all that join us. And I immensely appreciate my students. And this is as much of a decision for my students than it is because I selfishly want to give more of my time to teaching students to understand the NEC. That's my part of it. So...
Yeah, we're so thankful that we're going to give you guys 6 months off, man.
Yeah.
So go enjoy it with your guys' family, enjoy it with everybody, and hang out with us on the weekends whenever we, like Paul said, whenever we got time, we'll jump on and we'll make it happen. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thanks, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Had a ball, and we got other things that we're going to do. So we're just not going to be tied to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday nights. But you hadn't seen the last of us, obviously. So that's it as we sign off for the temporary hiatus, maybe. We don't know. We'll let you know as it unfolds. But right now, keep subscribing to the channel. Electrify is still alive, still on Electrician Live. We appreciate all of you. But make sure you subscribe so you get notices anytime that we come up with a show, or I do some kind of training, or we release Jay's Kicking It with the King. Just keep aware that it's out there. And again, at the end of the day, all the other crap aside, all the joking, chest pounding, at the end of the day, I truly appreciate all of you. And thank you for taking the time to spend it with us every week for the last couple of years. Truly appreciate it. So till next time, until we meet again, take care. All right. Peace.
See ya.
You've been listening to Electrify with your hosts, Paul Abernathy and Jay, the Basement King Grundberg.